Like,
Well, thanks, Bobby. It's the first time he's ever been brought up.
I'm finally proud of you.
Which is finally the first time. Which is saying something because, I've only known him for however old he is.
It's only been 30 years.
That's how close we are. I don't know how old Bobby is.
What are you, Zach?
He's my cousin.
Just because you spend so much time together, you lose track. Like, I don't even know how old I am anymore.
Jay, nobody can count that high. And with that, let's get into this next episode of the NRDWave podcast. I'll be your host, Kevin, as usual. Today I've got Bobby again. Welcome back, Bobby.
I'm still here.
Say hello. He's still here. He hasn't been fired. And I got Jay, Grandpa Jay over here with his handlebar mustache. Yeah, he's running out of time, so we better get going. We need.
Guys.
Yeah, you need to just chase my clout while you have the chance. And today we're going to be talking about post-apocalyptic movies, our top 5 favorite. And that is because of the current situation that everybody's in. It kind of feels like we're in this post-apocalyptic world. I don't know if you've driven around town at all, guys, but it's very strange when you go to your local Burger King and there's like 3 cars on the road. Very weird.
You know what's even weird is walking down Ventura Boulevard and you can jaywalk and stand in the middle of the street for as long as you want.
Jay, can you stop telling people where we live?
That's dangerous. Jay lives in the middle of the street in Ventura Boulevard.
Yeah,
that's where we live. That's exactly where we live. Please donate. We need all the help we can get. So yeah, it's been pretty crazy out there. So I think that this subject aligns perfectly, and we're not trying to make light of the situation, but a little levity from time to time definitely helps. Why don't we get into this episode? So we got our top 5. We've all created separate lists as per the usual. So who wants to take it away? Let's start with number 5. How about you, Bobby? You go first.
You know what? There's a lot of good movies. I kept on looking through the lists of post-apocalyptic movies. There's a lot of really good choices. Unfortunately, there are a lot of good ones that I've heard a lot about but haven't seen. But
what else is there, Bobby?
They got
away from you.
What can I say, Jay? There's that classic guff. So I actually tried to go a little bit outside the box. Some movies that you maybe wouldn't have thought about. For number 5, I went Pixar. I went with WALL-E. So I don't know if either one of you have actually seen it, but the movie starts out. You have the robot WALL-E, and he's basically like a trash robot, like cleaning up planet Earth, and it's nobody around. It's just trash everywhere, abandoned cities. I guess it's like the equivalent of like the Mad Max universe. Like it's all like kind of like a barren wasteland, and he's just content just cleaning up everybody else's trash. Everybody left Earth. All the humans left Earth on a big spaceship, and basically like for the first like 15 minutes he's all by himself until another robot crashes down to Earth, and this is probably like. It's probably very interesting because he falls in love with the first other person or other robot he's ever seen, but he falls in love with Eve or Eva because he calls her Eva all the time. And basically she's on Earth looking for life. And then she finds in like a boot, there's a plant that's growing, and she takes that back in a spaceship back to the, it's basically like a cruise ship in space.
Yeah. There's
like all these decks and everything, and like humanity has gotten so fat,
slothy,
and everybody is just like in a chair, like and just like zooming around everywhere. It's a very exaggerated, but like I could totally see it happening version of if all humans were just lazy.
So this is
not just post.
This is post-apocalyptic, but it's not dystopian. This is like
it is
ideology.
Not dystopian necessarily.
This is what we all wish for: being fat and walking around,
on a
gliding
cruise.
around. Yeah,
everyone is literally on vacation in space.
It's
us 3 love cruises, so this sounds like a dream.
It's funny because it's not like like a lot of other like Mad Max style movies. They're like hopeless. Like there's no hope. People are being taken care of. People are like happy, but they're like they don't know what it's like to be on Earth. And then like as the movie goes on, these characters like the captain of the ship, he's like, no, we're going back to Earth. Life is sustainable there. We're going back. So it's interesting to see. It's a lighthearted take on the post-apocalyptic world, and it's fun and it's just a good watch
and heartwarming, I'm sure.
Oh, it's very.
Yeah, that one got away from me. I'm not gonna lie. If you listened to episode 5 of the NRDWave podcast, you would have realized that I haven't seen a Disney movie since like the year 2000. So sorry guys.
Kevin.
Yeah, some more than others. All right, Jay, what's your number 5?
Number 5 is, you're probably not gonna like it. I think you probably have it on your list. It's probably higher up. But Dredd is my number 5. I love Dredd. I love the action. I love the casting. Obviously, Carl Urban. We've talked about this before. Kevin and I love Carl Urban. We want him cast for every main role. Urban. You never say cast Carl Urban for this role, and it could be like Ronald McDonald. Cast Carl Urban.
Bobby, you never say cast Carl Urban for every single role that has ever come up.
Yeah. That's true. I guess only
do.
You say that.
Kevin and I do. Carl Urban is amazing, and then Ava Green is also amazing. Was it Ava Green? No, it's not. It's Lena Headey.
Lena Headey, yeah.
Yeah, she's Mama. And it just if you guys seen the original Judge Dredd, this just blows it out of the water. It brings the bar up a lot. It's comic book style action, and just the visuals in this are so amazing when they're on the what's the drug called? Slow-mo, and everything is like seen through a prism or like a soap film. It's amazing, and like I said, the action's awesome. Dredd, Carl Urban is amazing at Dredd. Just that chin, that voice, he delivers the lines. Yeah, it's perfect. But the thing is, this reason it's so low on my list is because it's almost dystopian, but it's not really, because society isn't really thriving, but humanity is still,
well.
So flourishing.
I'm gonna have a lot more to say about this movie when we get to my choice, but I will be able to comment on that point you just made, because it is something I definitely thought about when making this list. But because I was almost on the fence about like, should I put this on the list? But my reasoning is absolutely, and
because it is
post-apocalyptic. It is very very dystopian, and I'll get to why. But,
I mean, it's got mega cities, just like, I don't know, Priest was pretty similar. They have mega cities. And obviously the post-apocalyptic thing was caused vampires. That probably would have been further down by number 10 or something. But just the way this was executed, the way we got a new Dredd, as opposed to the last one. Last one was just cheesy, corny, and campy. But, it's still worth a watch.
I actually like it.
I like it too.
It's not good,
such a
but
fun
I like it.
watch, but it's like not good in like almost any way.
So yeah, that's the reason this one's kind of low on my number 5. Is this is not so dystopian. It's like semi-dystopian, but there's plenty of civilization left, and there's some form of semblance of law.
Well, I am angry at you for having it so low, but it is still such a good movie, so I'm glad it made your list at least.
Yeah.
So my number 5. It's a movie I actually saw kind of recently, maybe just a few months ago. Back in, my buddy was in town and we watched it on Netflix or some sort of streaming app. But A Quiet Place. This Bobby, I know, hasn't seen this movie. I definitely recommend it. It's very interesting. It's got a cool concept. There are plot holes for sure. And I don't know if you care about spoilers, Bobby, but it kind of comes with the territory of this job.
I watched pitch meetings, so I'm all good.
Okay. Okay, so. Basically, shout out to Pitch Meeting. This movie is about a future world where aliens have invaded Earth, and they are super attracted to noise. So when they hear a noise, they extinguish whatever's making that noise. So it stars John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, who love both those actors. Real life couple, which is very cool. And they're basically just surviving in this world with aliens who hunt you based on sound. The cool thing about their story is that one of their daughters is deaf, so they know sign language. It allows them to survive in this world longer than most. But the twist of the story is that Emily Blunt's character is pregnant, so she's gonna have a child, and obviously that causes a lot of issues with noise. They create a situation where they can have this kid and have it muffled and stuff like that. They have like this sound dampened room and stuff. They no clue if it's going to work. And essentially all hell breaks loose. It's a super interesting world that they created. And Bird Box sort of ripped it off in a sense, which I do. Despite that, I still like that movie.
I saw that one.
But this is better. And so basically, all hell breaks loose. There's a really sad ending, but at the end it's sort of hopeful because they sort of figure out a way to get the upper hand. And A Quiet Place 2 being a prequel, if that ever comes out at this point, seems like it's going to be a really cool way of expanding on how they got to that point. So I'm pretty excited for that movie. But yeah, this movie has a lot of moments where you're like, how would anybody survive not making noise in this world? So I think that's what makes it very interesting, and it's an enthralling story. I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if this is worth to bring up, kind of off topic, but there's another similar movie to Bird Box and that on Netflix, also Netflix original, starring Stanley Tucci. It's called The Silence. It's also worth a watch. It's not as good as the other ones. Pretty much the same movie, but it's still entertaining.
Was it made after or before?
It was made after. It was 2019.
Okay, good. Then I won't delete this from my list.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
All right, great. So, Bobby, can I get your commitment to watch this movie at some point?
I think if the quarantine ever lifts, I think we should just watch it together. And that's how I'll watch it.
Sounds good. Well, a tradition, the reason I watch this movie, a tradition that I have with my friend Chris and Thomas, is we watch horror movies together. We usually super cheesy Sci-Fi Channel shit.
Watch all the Sharknadoes, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. They're all fantastic A+ movies.
What about the Wrong Turn movies? Have you watched all those?
Yes, we have. Wrong Turn 3, baby. Henry Rollins. He's so good. No, that movie's whack. All right, moving on to number 4. All right, Jay, how about you take this one away?
Number 4 is one of the... I don't know if it's probably one of the originals. I think it probably helped spin this genre up. Mad Max, the original Mad Max with Mel Gibson. It kind of feels like it's society's brought back together, kind of, and they're almost, functioning as a society. They have some form of limited government. He's one of the police. I forgot what they're called, but Max Rokitansky. I love this movie. You just got so many different things in there. The gang, the toe cutter, the Knight Rider. The way this movie starts out, he's chasing.
Knight Rider's in it.
Well, they call him the Knight Rider. The movie opens up with an amazing chase scene where everyone's going. It seems like they're going 200 miles an hour, but probably only going like maybe 100.
They're just speeding up the frames.
Everyone's got a muscle car, and this is later on in the later Mad Max movies like Road Warrior and everything else. Obviously gets way more dystopian, way more just dark and gritty, and there's a lot of despair there. But this one, it seems like they're trying to bring it back, and obviously his family gets killed by the toe cutter gang. His wife and baby get run over by toe cutter and his motorcycle, and then he spends the rest of the movie chasing them down. And it's just a revenge flick, post-apocalyptic. Mel Gibson's amazing. I think it's one of his first movies. It probably is his first movie. He still had an accent. Still had an accent in it too.
Yeah.
And there's all the characters are in it. Goose is there's a guy named Goose. He's hilarious. And he has a pretty horrid death too.
Say horrid?
But horrid.
Oh, I thought you meant like he died horrid.
It's Top Gun. Is that the kind of death?
This is before Top Gun, so I think maybe Top Gun took maybe Maverick's a form of Max, and Goose is.
Yeah.
It's definitely it's a staple, and it definitely need to give this a watch.
Well, the thing about that movie, and I haven't seen it in a very long time, but the fact that like there's a Mad Max style shows how important that movie was to film, because if you can break into regular pop culture in terms of like you got like a rusty muscle car with like spikes on it and shit, like that's Mad Max style. And if you can have something that is a style named after your movie, you've obviously made an impact. So.
Well, and they have whole events off in the desert where people literally dress up like these marauders and raiders,
That's
and
crazy.
they make these cars. They're insane. They got like spikes all over them. They're just really roll cages, tubing, and just big old V8 engines with stacks on them. And
not only that,
crazy.
40 years later, they had the 4th movie made. Brand
well, it's made by
and
that's
the original director,
and writer,
and on top of that, it's bled into other pop culture properties like Fallout. Raiders are all based on that type of style. So really cool.
A really cool fact about Fury Road is that Immortal Joe is actually the same actor that played Toe Cutter in the first one.
Oh, no way.
Would have been cool if he somehow was the same character. But it wasn't.
Well, that's funny. Just like Kevin was talking about how it bled into like pop culture, like now, like 40 years later, whatever. I've never seen any like the original Mad Max movies, but it's like one of my favorite shows is Futurama, and like there's an episode kind of devoted to like the Mad Max
Oh yeah,
style.
that's good.
And they go outside the city.
It's a group of kids like who are like all like it seems like they're the only ones left ruling everything, and it turns out that it's just L.A. in the year 3000,
and they're just playing, and they're not. So it's not really like that. The mom rolls up in like a minivan. Says,
exactly.
Go to Hebrew school.
The best part. Wait, is this the same episode? The best part is when the Planet Express lands on the red carpet and like the skeleton falls out, and they're like, "Oh, nice to see you, Mr. Stallone."
Yeah,
it's like a Neanderthal.
That's a different episode.
Oh, it is.
It's like the same concept. Like like Fry starts talking about like all of like the post-apocalyptic stuff, and then he starts talking about how like everybody in LA is phonies, and like just like a social commentary on LA.
All right, that was a pretty major tangent. Bobby, what's your number 4?
My number 4, like I think I saw this one in theaters. The one before it, I didn't see until a few years after it was in theaters. You know, it was starring James Franco, so I didn't think it was going to be any good. Dawn of Planet of the Apes. That movie was actually really damn good. And then the one, I don't remember the exact name. Was it just Planet of the Apes?
It's War for the Planet of the Apes.
No. The one before it was
No,
James
War
Franco.
was the third one.
Oh, yeah.
That was
Rise of the Planet
of the Apes. That was Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
I never expected that movie to be any good. And then I just randomly saw it one day, and I'm like, damn, James Franco was actually really good, and this movie was really good. So I saw Dawn of Planet of the Apes in the theaters, and it was great. Obviously, they call it the simian flu. It wipes out most of humanity while making all the apes around it stronger, and so they they take over smarter. Yeah, they take over basically everything at this point. And in this movie, you have a small group of humans. Like I think it's Kerry Russell. I don't remember the male actor's name. The male lead.
He was John Connor. Yeah. He was the worst John Connor. No offense to the actor, because he's a great actor, especially in this movie.
He's great. I think he's great in everything I've seen him in. It's just funny that I probably know him better as John Connor.
Yeah, that's his name. Let's just go with that.
Yeah. So John Connor's in it with Kerry Russell, right?
Yeah.
And basically, I don't remember all the details, but like they form like a partnership trying to get humanity back up and going, trying to restart like a dam to get like electricity going. And his second in command, Koba, just doesn't trust the humans. I don't remember exactly what made him not trust them. I think there was some event. It's
just being abused. I think he was like a circus monkey.
So in the first, he was in the first one. I'm pretty sure he was one of the test, one of the test monkeys. So,
but I still think he was adopted from or rescued from a zoo, a rescue ape from a zoo or some kind of circus.
Yeah, so he just had inherent trust issues with humans.
Yeah.
And basically, eventually, because Caesar, which is played brilliantly by Andy Serkis, like that dude does mocap like nobody.
Yeah.
He that's, I think Gollum is amazing, but I think like him as Caesar was possibly even better. So eventually Koba turns on Caesar, and then the humans end up having to keep Caesar alive, and basically the end of the movie is like a little bit of a war between the humans and the apes, with Caesar on the side of the humans. And it's just, there's a lot of emotion in it, which you wouldn't expect from this type of movie, like going back to the originals and going back to the remake with Mark Wahlberg, or I don't know if it's a remake, but whatever you want to call that one.
Yeah, reboot, whatever. Yeah, it was basically a remake. It was like a shot remake.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see just like how much emotion is in these movies. And in most movies like this, you don't care about the humans as much, like let's say like Transformers or something like that. But I think you get a lot of good story out of the humans because they lost people, and like you see them coming together and trying to stay together. And then they also help Caesar, who should technically be their enemy at this point. So it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, the thing that I was going to say is in a lot of these post-apocalyptic movies, you have humans fighting with each other and, to compete for, reducing resources. And that doesn't really happen in these movies. It's really cool how like humanity sort of joins together as a unit because of a plague essentially. So that's cool to see. And then there's just this, and the thing that sets this movie off from other movies like this is that they do such a good job of ironically humanizing Caesar and making you give a shit about what he wants and what he feels and what he thinks. And he's trying to stop a war, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, I didn't see War for the Planet of the Apes.
I didn't either. I really want to though.
Yeah, I still got to see that one.
They're all really good.
But
Woody Harrelson's awesome.
Yeah, I've heard he's great. But
Gary Oldman, by the way, he just to give a little backstory on that one, he distrusts the apes. I think his son, maybe his wife, I can't remember. He lost somebody, and he goes kind of crazy and tries to start the war, and he plays this madman kind of general type role, I guess, which is kind of what Woody Harrelson ended up playing in the next movie too. But I think Gary Oldman was less of a general, but he definitely kickstarted this war with the humans and the apes.
Yeah, he was. You could tell that he recognized the threat before anybody else really did, and inadvertently brought on the threat earlier than it probably would have happened, because Caesar, basically being the smartest of all the apes, was trying to resist that war, but then was forced to go into war. And then we get the greatest imagery of those movies is apes, riding horses. So fucking cool.
Didn't they have the machine gun also while riding the horse?
Dude. Yeah. And then gorillas throwing these explosive barrels around and stuff.
The gorillas and the orangutans just
it's so cool.
Just brute strength.
It's like Donkey Kong in real life.
Yeah.
It's freaking awesome.
What's cool is right now, this is obviously top 5 of, one of ours top 5. But if you go back 30 years, the original Planet Apes probably would have been in the same position.
It's fantastic.
It's amazing. The makeup and everything they do, the practical effects.
And the twist.
And the twists. And Charlton Heston. It's just, it's great movies. And then 30 years later, they continue tradition. This quality. Quality kind of went down, obviously, with some of the other ones, like Beneath the Planet of the Apes. They're still good, but it's not Planet of the Apes.
No, the original is fantastic. The remake is pretty bad. But yeah, this reboot ended up being a really solid trilogy. Glad they ended up doing that. All right, so let's get to my number 4. I have kind of a change of pace here. I have a comedy, Zombieland. I think it still holds up. Movie. Yeah, I think it's funny. I think it's quirky. I think it's an interesting twist on the genre, because during this time when Zombieland was released, there were a lot of movies that were being released and TV shows. The Walking Dead was hot. Everything was really sad and dour and, bleak and all this stuff. And this movie was like, well, what if we kind of take a comedic twist to it? And I think the cast is fantastic. I think Jesse Eisenberg as a neurotic nerd works so well in this universe. Great. And his survival is 100% based on that aspect of where he's just so worried about everything that he accounts for everything. And it's funny. It's an awesome contradiction to Woody Harrelson's character, where he's just this guy who is so physically self-assured that it doesn't matter how much he prepares, he's going to get out of it because he's just good at what he does. Yeah. Really cool, interesting, love interest story that's going on there, where, they're basically the last 2 pairs of men and women that, as far as they know, that are on Earth. So they're kind of like a super unlikely couple. And not only that, stylistically, the movie is really interesting to watch. They have a lot of cool, when he's explaining his rules, like double tap or cardio and stuff, they have big text that shows up, rule number 1, cardio. Really interesting stuff. Yeah, exactly. It's really cool. It's as if you're watching a video game that unfortunately you can't play. But really, really funny movie, really different. I think original in a lot of ways. I love this movie. I actually watched the second one recently. Not quite as good, but pretty good. Pretty good.
It was good. Decent.
This movie blows the second one out of the water. So if you're gonna pick one to watch, obviously you watch this one.
There was part of the second one I loved is I don't know if this is gonna be spoilers, but the doppelgangers.
Spoilers.
The doppelgangers are hilarious.
Luke Wilson and the guy from Silicon Valley. Yeah. Really good. Really good.
You also had Bill Murray, Bill Murray playing Bill Murray, didn't you, in the first one?
Yep. That was a really cool touch. Interesting cameo there, because they go to Beverly Hills and they run into him on accident, and it's cool seeing a more lighthearted approach to the apocalypse, a lot like how Last Man on Earth was. I know Jay liked that show, where it's just if you were alone on Earth, what would you do? And that's sort of what's happening in this show. It's not oh my god, every moment's survival. There's moments of levity, there's moments of lightheartedness. It's just a really enjoyable watch, and it's not depressing, which is a good thing.
I love his search for Twinkies the whole time, and every time he finds something, it's snowballs.
Snow cones.
And he's snowballs.
Yeah.
Because I hate snowballs too. Coconut's disgusting.
Oh, they're horrible. They're so bad. Twinkies are legit though.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, yeah, let's move on to our number 3s then. Who wants to go first on this one? Getting into the nitty gritty now.
I'll go with it. So this one, I mentioned that I hadn't seen any of the original Mad Max movies, but I watched Mad Max Fury Road, and that movie is just awesome. It's almost from start to finish. It's just like pure adrenaline. It's like a chase movie. It's like it's just constant action. You have Charlize Theron as like the main, pretty much the main character, and she just kicks so much ass in this movie. You have Tom Hardy, who I think he actually was Max, right? Is that?
I don't know. It's Max, but I feel like there's a lot of fan theories where he's the feral kid from.
Oh, okay. I've heard that.
He is officially Max though.
Okay.
But in terms of like his characterization versus Mel Gibson's, completely different. Yeah. It's strange, but I like it either way.
Yeah, I like the fan theory that he's the feral kid, so
I'm gonna go with that. That's gonna be my headcanon no matter what.
Yeah.
No, I think that works great, and it ties into obviously the old movies, and like you just have like he doesn't say a lot, but he kicks a lot of ass, and he's like a great action character. Like basically it's just you have Charlize Theron with her like basically with Immortum Joe. He's the villain. He's like the leader of I think the Citadel, or I say leader. He's like the fascist leader of the Citadel, dictator. Where he just dominates everything. The dictator, yeah. And he's chasing Charlize Theron's character because Furiosa, right? That's her name.
Yep.
Yeah. So she has his pregnant girlfriend, and I think a few of the other girlfriends or whatever, and they're just trying to escape. If I remember right, they're trying to get to like her old homeland, like where she grew up. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it's like it's almost like an oasis. Yeah.
Yeah.
For women only.
For women only. Yeah, no men. And basically, it's she ends up like teaming up with.
I'll tuck it.
Jay, I think your beard might give it away. Also, never mind.
Just the beard. The beard's the only
thing. Just
thing.
the beard. Yep, that's all you got.
So I mean, basically, it's just trying to stay away from Immortum Joe and get to the Oasis, and it's just like there's so much good action, and like apparently, like from what I've heard, a lot of it harkens back to the original movies with the action style, and it's just a fun movie just the entire time through. You have the guy, I don't remember his name, the guy who plays Beast in the X-Men movies, like the new ones.
Yeah.
I thought he was pretty good. Like, he wanted to go to, I think, Valhalla. They talked about like going there, and then like he realized that like they were just using him, and he ended up like teaming up with Furiosa and Max in that group. Yeah. And I thought he was actually a very underrated character in that movie.
Nicholas Holt's his name.
There you go.
But yeah, the cool thing about him is he has an actual character arc, because he's just this young kid basically who's like just following
he's fodder.
Yeah, he's following the path of like what everybody else does. He does the stupid like silver
Witness
spray
me.
paint and stuff like that.
High with the silver
huffing.
paint.
Yeah, and like he's just following the pack, and then he eventually realizes like that this isn't necessarily right. Like he has a conscience, which is really cool. You don't expect that kind of thing from like a tertiary character in a Mad Max movie. But the thing about this movie, and I did really enjoy it, this isn't really a contradiction to your having it on the list, but nothing happens in this movie really in terms of plot. It's 100% chase movie, and for whatever reason, it just works. It's so good.
I know why it works.
It's the second most fun movie on my list, I would say.
Spoiler alert, it's not on my list, but I did debate putting it on my list. I wanted to put it on, but I just like I felt like Jay having the first one on the list, which I didn't know ahead of time, obviously. I kind of suspected you were going to have it on there because it's your era. It came out when you were in your 20s. So, so I was like, nah, I'm not going to like put the newer one on because I'm going to look like, a poser or whatever, which Bobby definitely looks like right now. But if I could go back, I would definitely, I think I would put it at number 5 because I thought it was very, very good.
Kevin would be a poser if he could change things.
Yes, I would. But I just can't be a poser,
Yeah. I know what makes this movie great and why the chase scene works. It's because all these, they try to do as many practical effects and physical stunts as possible.
It's great.
Yes,
They try to use as little as CGI as possible. I think the most CGI you get is literally that tornado, the sandstorm/tornado, and everything else is pretty much like actual practical. Someone's doing a stunt, someone's on a wire, and it's just physically there.
It looks so much better.
The coolest stuff is when they're doing the pole vault crap, and then there's like explosions going on in the background, like with Tom Hardy on the pole vault, like just going across frame, and it's so cool. It's visually stunning, and it looks real because it essentially is. They do like stuff in the background to make it look more engulfing, but in terms of like the world that they're in. But holy crap, it just looks so good. It's such a good movie. All right, Jay, what's your number 4?
My number 3.
3, sorry.
Book of Eli is my number 3. I had so much.
I knew this was gonna be on your list.
You knew it?
Yep, I knew it.
I don't know, something about it. It's just the I guess I love the spiritualness about it and how like he's protected by God, carrying the Bible. And then the twist is pretty awesome. Gary Oldman is an amazing villain as usual.
Oh man, he's so good.
Yeah,
what else?
This guy, there's nothing this guy can't act. And he's amazing. Denzel Washington, he's just, he's just the cool Denzel Washington. It's the
he's got the cool factor.
The Equalizer in he's the Equalizer in the future.
But not Equalizer 2.
Not Equalizer. I like Equalizer 2.
Oh, really? I hated it. That's a subject for another.
You got to turn your brain off, man. You got to turn your brain off more when you watch movies.
I can't.
That'll be next time on worst Denzel Washington movies, Kevin.
But
thanks.
The movie.
That'll be the only one.
Whoever hasn't seen it, Denzel Washington is walking. He's been walking for 30 years, ever since this apocalyptic thing happens. They kind of allude to like maybe it was solar flares. The sun got brighter, the Earth gets scorched. So I'm thinking it's solar flares, and the whole movie is filmed with this almost glare, this bright glare. Everything's washed out gray. You can't really see true color, but it's so bright. It's just desert. You can tell. You feel like it's hot when you're watching it. You're almost sweating watching it.
Absolutely.
And then there's little remnants of civilization, but not really. They're just surviving. Their water's scarce. Gary Oldman is the runner. He runs his town. He's kind of the mayor/ruler. He has pretty much the rights to all the water, and everyone just kowtows to him and does whatever he says. And he's searching for a book to give him ultimate power over everybody. And it turns out it's the book that Denzel Washington is carrying. Denzel Washington shows up in town and he meets wow, I can't remember. Old person moment.
Oh no, not again.
Oh, what's her name?
Jay, take your medication.
Jay's got space dementia.
Mila
Kunis.
Mina?
Mila. I said Mila.
I heard Mina.
He meets her. Sorry. And they become friends, and she's obviously, no one knows how to read, and she sees his book and she's like, "You have a book?" And then and he reads it to her, and then they end up on a journey together while she's trying to escape. And then Gary Oldman finds out that he has a book and suspects what it is. Turns out he's looking for a Bible, so you can rule people through fear or through religion, like most of the Middle Ages and Dark Ages were ruled. And he knows that's going to give him ultimate power. And then so they're chasing Mila Kunis and Denzel Washington through this whole thing. And then the big twist is that, I don't know, should we do it?
Yeah, spoiler it. It's a 10-year-old
Spoilers. Movie. It's a 10-year-old movie. It turns out Denzel Washington is blind. And God's giving a mystical ability, or giving him the ability to see while he's carrying that book. Or I don't know if he sees or senses it or whatever.
It's like Daredevil.
Yeah, it's like Daredevil. And then so it's a pretty cool twist, and it's, like I said, it's got good action in it. And all the actors are amazing. Ray Stevenson is in it too.
Oh, he's awesome. I love that guy.
Yeah,
he's like the poor man's Carl Urban.
Michael Gambon is in it, and he plays.
Fantastic.
Yeah, him and his wife play cannibals, and it's a great watch all around. Whether you believe in the Bible or not, but just watch it.
I'm not an overly religious person, but I like the dichotomy that they set up in this movie, where you have a guy who wants to take the Bible and manipulate it for power purposes, and then Eli, is his character's name, right?
His name's Eli, yeah.
Okay.
He's got a name tag from where he worked, probably like a Walmart or something. It says Eli.
Yeah. So you have the dichotomy of like someone wanting to use it for power purposes, and then someone wanting to use it for hope. And the end of the movie establishes that hope as being something that is going to spread, because they end up like copying the book, which is like originally what started the spread of Christianity amongst our world anyways. So it's a really cool, like, cyclical type of history repeating itself type of thing in this movie that they set up, that, you know, art imitates reality.
Well,
so cool.
The other cool part is that when Gary Oldman finally gets the Bible, and it turns out it's all in Braille, so he can't read it.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And
so he's just like,
mistress, her wife, is blind, but she refuses to read it, and then he ends up dying from an infection from a gunshot wound. Well, Denzel has been reading it for 30 years. He has it completely memorized, verse for verse.
Yep.
And then he's ended like actually just orating it, and while someone dictates it.
Yeah.
And
so Bobby, have you seen the movie?
I have not, unfortunately.
Okay, so yeah, Gary Oldman gets his hands on the book, so Eli no longer has it, but he gets to this like sanctuary where he's able to read it word for word to people who translate it and transcribe it to a book. So they're printing it at that point.
That's pretty awesome.
So it's a pretty cool ending.
That sounds like a good ending.
Yeah, it's such a good movie. Yeah, I gotta watch that one again, because unfortunately I didn't see that one in theaters, but I ended up watching it on like TNT or something like 5 years ago. Really cool. I was surprised at how good it is, and the action is actually very good too.
Yeah.
And speaking of action, I think that I'm probably gonna get a little bit of guff for this one, to steal Jay's phrase. I have The Matrix at number 3. So
I almost picked that, but
it works.
Yeah.
It works.
So this is one that I sort of questioned as being post-apocalyptic, but I think the setting of the movie is undeniably post-apocalyptic. It's for sure dystopian, even though the visuals are mostly present day. The world that they built is definitely a world that no longer resembles what we live in today. So obviously, this movie is known for its incredible action sequences, special effects. Innovative in almost every single way and imitated in almost every single way. This movie, as far as like an action thriller, it's perfect in my opinion. If we ever do an episode about best action movies, spoiler alert, this is going to be my number 1. I respect it so much for what they did. So anybody who doesn't know the backstory, basically humans get in a war with robots. The robots end up winning that war. They block out the sun. Humans block out the sun in order to block the robot's power source, which is solar. The robots end up winning the war anyways, creating battery packs out of humans, creating a computer program to simulate present day for humanity so they don't realize that they're being enslaved. That's
pretty nice, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they didn't have to do that. And in fact, it probably ended up being their downfall. But either way, the movie, this is one of those movies that I watched 3 or 4 times as a kid, because this movie came out in 2000, so I was 13. I had no fucking idea what was happening in this movie when I saw it. It took me 5 times to finally figure out why they could run on walls, why they could, do bullet time and all this stuff. I was just like, what the hell is happening here? Once I figured it out, I was like, oh my god, this is so freaking cool. And I remember one of my next door neighbors, we would reenact certain scenes, like we would do like the fight scene in the subway where it would be like, shooting at each other, and then we'd like land and be like, you're out, so are you. That whole scene, so good. There's so many iconic moments, like dodge this, like it's so freaking cool. So yeah, in terms of like dystopian future, definitely applies. A post-apocalyptic feel, maybe not necessarily, but it's undeniable how good this movie is. I wish I could put it higher, but in terms of the genre's sake that we're discussing right now, I had to keep it a little bit lower. So yeah, Matrix, my choice for number 3.
If it was more in the current day rather than in the simulation, or I guess less in the simulation, I could understand it being put up higher. But yeah, like I think that's a good spot for it in the middle of your picks, because it's like kind of like, I would say like not even half and half. It's probably like a quarter in the post-apocalyptic, and then like 3/4 of it actually in the Matrix. Yeah. So I think that's a good spot.
It's a good pick.
I think the established setting is what makes it apply to this specific subject that we're talking about. But the visuals, not necessarily. So that I was definitely conflicted, but couldn't resist. This movie's so good.
Yeah, I kind of figured it would be on your list.
It's great.
Yeah,
and your cast is awesome too. Joe Pantoliano,
of course,
he's great.
Cypher,
yeah, you got Carrie Moss, Lawrence Fishburne.
The villain, who's the villain? He's been in so many things.
Hugo Weaving, man.
Yeah.
Oh no, sorry, not him. I meant the one, the turncoat.
He's the
boss.
Yeah, Joe Pantoliano.
Yeah.
Oh, Cypher. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I clearly don't know him by name.
I just want to ask you a question. Would another Keanu Reeves movie wouldn't be your top pick for best action movie?
Are you talking about Point Break or John
Talking
Wick?
about John Wick. Yeah.
No,
Break.
definitely not.
No, really.
No,
John
dude,
Wick?
this movie shits on John
It's
Wick. No offense, I love John Wick.
Shit on John
Yes,
Wick.
it does.
How dare you?
How many innovative things did John Wick do?
Doesn't matter.
Nothing.
He actually reloads his guns.
It doesn't matter. Dude, the iconic imagery in this movie.
I gotta agree with you. They
is
start bullet
fantastic.
time. They do bullet time. They just
Within the first 5 minutes of the movie, you have Carrie-Anne Moss as Trinity doing a spider kick or whatever. I don't even know what it's called. She's floating in midair, and the cameras circle her. It's like, it's mind blowing. It's nothing had ever done anything like this in the past.
Kevin.
And so, how many movies imitated it?
Yeah,
Kevin.
a lot of
Countless.
movies. I gotta agree with you.
Do you think the Beatles are better than Led Zeppelin because they came first and innovated before Led Zeppelin?
Led Zeppelin's better, but in my opinion. But how many people agree with me on that point?
Probably a lot more than you think. People love to hate on the Beatles these days. For some reason.
Maybe. But it's definitely nuanced. But the fact remains that The Matrix holds up as a movie today. It was innovative and imitated across all genres. Comedies tried to ape it. Other action movies tried to ape it. Yeah.
Okay.
It's quotable.
As a trilogy as a whole, which one's better?
Oh, God.
We'll get to that.
That's not fair. Okay,
John Wick's better. But 1 versus 1. The Matrix, the original, versus John Wick, versus John Wick 2, versus John Wick 3. Better than all of them. I'm sorry. All of them put together? Nope.
Not even close when you put them all together. That's sad.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like Reloaded. It's not great. I like it. I hate Revolution. Horrible.
Fair enough.
All right. But yeah, Matrix, great movie. Okay. So yeah, let's move on to number 2. Who wants to take this one away?
All right, I'll take this one. So this one, I actually put it in maybe like 20 minutes or so before we actually started this. I replaced another movie because it kind of maybe skirts the genre. I feel like Jay might have the most problem with it, but I went with Interstellar because it's not your traditional post-apocalyptic movie. So this movie starts out, it's basically the world is dying. Crops, like there's a blight and crops aren't growing anymore. They talk about how like there's the last crop of okra ever, and like that's just one of dozens and dozens of crops that's no longer growing. So Coop is the main character, Matthew McConaughey, and I think I call him Cooper. I'm not really sure which, but he's a former pilot, and basically in this setting at the start of the movie, NASA has been disbanded as far as everybody knows. And in schools, they're teaching that the U.S. never made it to the moon, and it was all a ploy to bankrupt the USSR. So, like, you know, they're dumbing down our generation and making it seem like people never went to the moon and space travel was fake. So basically, they end up through some like mystical forces, which is definitely the low points of the movie. I think everything having to do with that stuff. Like, you know, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Like, it's just like all this stuff about love, and it's really hard to get into without going in, you know, to like a 10-minute long explanation. But
essentially, love is the fourth dimension.
Fifth dimension.
Fourth.
It's ridiculous. It's
like
dimension.
We live in 3 dimensions.
I know, but the fourth would be time, and love is the fifth.
I don't think so.
I don't know. I don't remember exactly, so I can't tell you which. But basically,
fact check us in the comments. Smash that like button if either of us are right.
Nobody's gonna smash it.
Yeah, we're both wrong.
It's the 6th dimension.
Oh, idiot. Shit! Damn it, we're so dumb.
So basically, one of these like love spirits, you'll find out later that it was actually, I think it was actually Cooper that sent them to find NASA, him and his daughter. And NASA's been working underground, and they've got a plan to send people out to, I think it's 4 different planets, or was it 9 different planets? Something like that. Just a few different planets to see which one can actually host life. And basically, the rest of the movie is their journey to find which one works the best. And it's a really like interesting movie. I think it's really well acted. Anne Hathaway's in it, and she plays the role, I think, perfectly. And there's a surprise, like none of us knew it was coming. A surprise appearance by Matt Damon. Matt Damon. He's this Dr. Mann that like people have been talking about for like the entire movie about being like the best of everybody, like the best scientist and astronaut of everybody. They find him on one of these planets, and then like he basically realized that they were screwed, and then he ends up turning on everybody, getting one of the astronauts killed in the spacecraft. And then he's like trying to steal the spaceship to go. I don't even know where he's trying to go. But then he ends up screwing up and getting himself killed. And it's just
Instant
a really
karma.
Yeah, like very much so. It's really interesting too because Cooper's daughter ends up like she loves her dad and her dad has to leave her, and like years and years go by because like there's some stuff with like black holes and like time
dilation.
Time dilation being distorted and everything, and like they go like near a planet for like an hour longer than they meant to, and it cost them like 20 years. And his daughter eventually becomes more and more bitter as the movie goes on, and things are getting worse and worse. Like just there's like nothing happening on Earth, and then eventually they find out that the main scientist's plan, Michael Caine, his plan wasn't to eventually move everybody to one of these planets. It was to start with like artificial insemination on on one of these planets, and everybody else was going to end up dying. So like I think that's the big twist of the movie. And then eventually Cooper's daughter finds out a way like through like wormholes and things like that. Murph, there we go. Murph. She finds out a way. Not as good as Murph. She finds out a way to save humanity, and Cooper isn't actually the hero. It's funny because he gets rescued at the end of the movie, and I think it's Cooper Station, and it's not named after him. It's named after his daughter.
Yeah.
It's a long movie with some very, I would say, interesting in not the best possible way stuff happening, like with the fourth dimension and all that. But like the actual exploration and like the science behind it is really interesting to me.
I think it's to say that the best part for me is just their use of relativity. Know, being on the event horizon of the black hole, and the closer you get to whatever it is, the time's going to speed up for you, but whoever's far away, time's going to stay the same.
Which is all very real, accurate scientific theory. Super cool. I had a lot of problems with this movie, and I'm surprised it's so high on your list, Bobby. But there's a lot of great stuff, and one of the most impactful scenes for me was when Cooper's watching a video from Murph.
Oh man.
Where she's just saying how much like she doesn't understand why you left and all this stuff. And those who are fans of this podcast, so all two of you, know that I don't cry in movies a lot, and I don't shed actual tears. But this movie is one of those ones that like almost got me in that scene. I was just like, I felt McConaughey's performance, and at the end of the day, all the other complaints I have with this movie, McConaughey's performance, Jessica Chastain's performance, they're both very, very good. And Michael Caine, obviously, he's fantastic in everything except for Jaws 3.
And Luigi Affleck. Don't forget Luigi Affleck.
Yes. It's Luigi time.
Eric Foreman was also in it. I don't know if he was good. He was in it.
Yeah. So lots of complaints about this movie, but lots of praise too. And it's really hard to say bad things about a Nolan movie in general. He's got an eye for making really good movies.
Well, so. It's funny you mentioned the scene like with him watching the video of his daughter. It's after the time jump, so like he sees his daughter age like 15-20 years or something like that.
What's cool is he meets her on Murph Station. She's still alive.
Oh yeah, at the end of the movie, he meets his daughter as she was in like a
she was
coma.
90-something year old. Yeah, no, she was awake.
Well, she was. Oh no, she was in I think she was in like a
stasis, probably some kind of stasis.
Yeah, she was in like some kind of like time stasis, and they brought her out of it to talk to him.
Right.
And like she had a family and all this stuff, and like just everything had changed, and like just their relationship was the best part of the movie, which unfortunately also ties into that fourth dimension of love thing that we were talking about. And it's just very convoluted, I feel like.
Yeah.
It definitely, I think they needed it to progress the movie, but it's my least favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, definitely. That movie had me on the hook until they showed the Tesseract, basically. Like, so them, like, Cooper in that fourth dimension.
That dimension, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the piano strings kind of thing.
Which is like, it's okay that it took artistic liberty because nobody knows not even scientists really know how to explain what that might look like. Yeah, exactly. So it is what it is.
But I mean, it does explain stuff that happened. Like they found NASA because he gave them the coordinates in that dimension. But
so
it's
he's
like
stuck in a loop.
Basically, yes. But it's like it did tie up some loose ends towards the beginning of the movie, but not towards the end. So it's an interesting concept.
Right. All right, Jay, what do you got for number 2?
Number 2, 28 Days Later. I think this movie probably almost single-handedly rebooted the zombie genre. And it's a real turn from everything else. It's like most of the movie is just almost silent, and which is really cool. And then when you hear the zombies coming, and it's just like, gurgling, aggressive, growling, and they're fast too, which is really cool. I just think this movie executed everything perfectly. And it shows like humanity's like really true. Either you're gonna be good or you're gonna be bad. There's no like real in between. There's you see the military guys. They're the epitome of the base of humanity. They're just being completely giving into their every desire, but at the same time still being disciplined in their military sense. And then you get the how many survivors? You get the 4 of them together, and they're just like kind of having a good time through the movie, like going on searching for different things, trying to get to this military base. And then the way how fast the change is, you turn to a zombie. I think movie just did everything great. I don't think I really have any problems with the movie. I think it's almost perfect. And like I said, it's the way it's done. It makes it so much more eerie and creepier than the rest of any of the kind of zombie movie you get. Other zombie movies are just based on gore. This one just has a totally different feel. Like you feel like you're trying to survive with them while you're watching the movie.
Right.
And it's a lot more suspenseful than like a typical
very, very, very suspenseful. And you're like, and the sequel to 28 Weeks Later, which is just as good. We see Jeremy Renner in his first film appearance, maybe. And it's almost just as good. Humanity, is almost back together then, and then, or no, that one starts off with the original, which I'm so confused right now. 28 Weeks Later.
Another old person moment.
I'll have to watch it again, but it was almost just as good.
Well, thank God that's not your number 2 choice.
Yeah. So number 1, 28 Days Later is.
You're like number 1, 28 weeks later.
Now I'm Joe Biden.
And I remember nothing about it. So who's in 28 Weeks Later? 28 Days Later, sorry.
Cillian Murphy. I can't remember the actress's name. It's a lot of British actors that you've seen everywhere. I'm not big on a lot of their names. One of them plays Doctor Who.
Wait, a male one?
Yeah, the military leader, the guy, the sergeant, and the military leader. He was a Doctor Who.
Nice.
But yeah, Cillian Murphy. It's the first time we see Cillian Murphy besides Trainspotting. But wait, was he in Trainspotting?
I don't know. You said it.
I don't know.
It's all right. We'll edit this all out.
We'll edit it out. Edit out my old person moments.
Yeah, we're gonna edit out Jay's whole number 2 choice.
Almost all of what you've said, we're gonna
edit out.
Fat. Look fat.
Yeah, but like I said, this almost rebooted. This is the movie that rebooted, besides the remake of Dawn of the Dead. These rebooted the zombie genre, and now we are saturated.
Yeah, exactly. It started a whole trend that still is going to this day.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong, but I believe that this movie is the first one that really established like the fast zombie trope, where it's not just like shuffling dead bodies. It's like they could actually catch you. You can't just outrun them. You gotta be quiet. You gotta be tricky. All that stuff, which totally changed the game, because at that point, you basically just have to have ammo. You gotta be a good shot. You gotta have weapons.
That makes me wonder: do zombies? Do they not skip leg day? Like, do they have like strong legs to be able to just run after everybody?
It's a virus taking over your system.
Rule number 1: cardio.
Body doesn't care.
Zombie
and then
callback.
The transmission and the origin of this is really cool. It's obviously animal testing, and it's the rage virus. It just takes over. It makes you just rage. You have no other emotion than rage. There's no physical control. You can't speak. Just one thing is controlling you, and it's rage.
I actually like that. That reminds me of Quarantine, if anybody's seen it, which was an adaptation from a Spanish film, I'm pretty sure, called Wreck. where rabies is a mutation of rabies is what causes this zombie behavior.
Which I think is the same with this. Yeah, I think it was a mutation of rabies.
It's really, really cool kind of thing that makes it more real, I think, instead of just being some, I don't know, some sort of thing
supernatural. It's not supernatural.
Yeah. It's not some sort of thing that started from someone eating a bat at a wet market or something. Anyways, I think that brings us to our... Yeah, exactly. My number 2, which I think is the most faithful and most realistic, probably the most depressing depiction of what a post-apocalyptic world is, and that would be The Road, with Viggo Mortensen. This movie, it's very simple. This movie doesn't have a lot of ups and downs. It's incredibly depressing, which is what I said was a good thing about The Matrix not being. About Zombieland not being, where it's very lighthearted and it kind of gets your mind off of the world that they're living in. This movie just sends you headfirst into what real life might look like if an extinction level event were to happen and there were a few stragglers that stayed behind. So basically, you have Viggo Mortensen and his son, who are surviving in this wasteland. Basically, the way the world's depicted is just ash. Everything's just dead. And I don't think they explain why, which is a really cool aspect because it kind of lets you make up your own mind on that. Viggo Mortensen has a gun and it has 2 bullets in it. And he's saving those 2 bullets for him and his son if something were to happen where that would be the better option. So there's tons of moments in the movie where he has to decide whether he's going to shoot somebody with it or save it for him and his son if it were to come to that. And it's super tense. And there's this really cool aspect of the movie where Viggo Mortensen's characterization is basically that he thinks everybody's bad. His son, who is 10 or 11, isn't so sure that everybody's bad. So he kind of has this almost optimistic outlook, which is incredible for the world that they live in. So there's kind of this conflict between them those two characters where Viggo Mortensen's character is just I might have to kill this guy. And his son's character is just well, do we have to? Kind of thing. Yeah. So it's this really cool thing. And like I said, the movie is very even in terms of how it depicts the whole universe that they're in. There's not a lot of huge climactic moments, not a lot of really slow moments. It's just very even.
Like a day in the life.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just a day that we experience with them. And it's incredible. And the movie, it's very unique in the fact that it just depicts what reality might look like if this world exists. And it's incredibly powerful. So anybody who hasn't seen it, it's definitely more of a slower watch, but it's something that I would recommend to anybody who's into this kind of thing. And it is based on a novel. The novel is really good. But the movie, if you just need 2.5 hours to read a book, then watch the movie instead. And the performances are great. So yeah. Highly recommended.
How I have another one that I have not seen, but how is the ending to this movie? Is it
it's a happy-ish ending?
In my opinion, it just kind of ends. It isn't. Nothing's resolved. It's just that they're just kind of continuing to live. It's very weird. I almost felt like it was setting up some sort of sequel, but obviously I knew there wasn't one coming.
I'm wondering.
It's just they just continue living.
Okay.
So it's not quite like the end of The Mist, if you guys have seen that one.
Nobody's rescued. Nobody's rescued. Nobody's attempted to be rescued.
Well, I think
nothing like that.
Was anybody really rescued?
No, but they were about to be.
I read the book. I might be getting the book and the movie mixed up. So I feel like there's a definite ending in the book.
The movie almost just kind of ends, in my opinion. There's not really any kind of resolution.
Okay.
I think that, I haven't seen it, but I think that's a very interesting sounding ending.
Yeah.
Where it just keeps going. That's just life for them now.
Basically.
All right. So that's a good segue into the next one. Can I go first?
Yeah, you can take number one.
Ready?
What's your number one?
Because number one was The Road.
That's a great segue.
Tell me how this movie ends.
Well, I thought I could, if I can't remember, it's been a while since I've seen it, but I read the book also, and both the book's amazing too, and you get the exact same feel from the movie as you do in the book. But I feel like the book might be a little more heart wrenching. they run into a couple of unsavory characters, and I think that Viggo Mortensen ended up getting shot, and so he's surviving a bullet wound while trying to save his son, and then run into a couple at the end, and he ends up leaving the couple, his son, while he goes and often dies.
Oh yeah, you're right. I just looked it up. Fact checked on myself.
Yeah,
Jay, you're right.
Sorry.
No. I mean, we want to be accurate.
Yeah.
Because I remember watching the movie and just being like it just ends, and I was like, what? So I don't know. Maybe
blocked out the sad part.
Yeah, I just mentally blocked it out because I'm afraid of my own emotions. All right, continue.
Yeah, you might shed a tear.
I mean, it's a super emotional movie. I mean, honestly, you feel their despair, and they do a great job of setting up the environment to almost drive those emotions too. And I don't remember if there's a lot of music in it again. I think it's one of those almost really quiet movies with not a lot of dialogue. So really the characters, like body language and actions, are really driving the story. And like I said, there's a couple of intense moments where they come across these unsavory characters, and then he ends up having to kill, I think, a couple guys, and he ends up getting shot, and then he ends up, bleeding out alone somewhere else because he left his son with the family. But I mean, it really is. I think this is what I would think, like Kevin said, an extinction level event. I mean, electricity is not there. You're not capable of, mass production of anything. You can't grow anything. You're struggling to find food. I mean, a Book of Eli had the same feel as far as survival. Just not to this degree. This takes it to the next level. But this is also, like, book is worth a read, and this movie is definitely worth a watch. But I mean, you can't be sensitive to this at all. I mean, this is gonna take you places you don't want to go.
That sounds very depressing.
The thing about this movie is there is a very hopeless environment that's set up by the movie where you're not expecting anybody to, create a new way of generating electricity or planting a new crop or anything like that. It's very much like these two people are going to die in the way that this world is existing now. There's not a lot of setup to any kind of rescue thing. Like any fans of The Walking Dead, there's talk of a cure or that kind of thing. Or there's hints of a cure. Nothing like that in this movie. Yeah. It's just very much they're going to live in this world. They're going to die in this world. It's just about surviving as much as possible. Yeah.
There's no coming back for humanity in this. They're dwindling. Yeah. They're extinct. They're the last of their species.
Yeah. So the point of it is the relationship between the father and the son, and how their survival all hinges on their cleverness or whatever. Yeah. It's like it's a really, really, really good movie. Sad though, and when researching for this episode, there were a lot of articles that were saying like this is a movie you will probably only watch once because that's how heavy it is.
Yeah.
So highly recommended. One time.
That's really interesting. Just looking at my list compared to that movie, like, you've got WALL-E. They're at the end of the movie, they go back to Earth, so they're gonna try. Like, they start planting stuff on Earth. There's hope. Yeah. Dawn of Planet of the Apes. Like, there's still hope for society.
There's still some sort of community. Yeah.
There might be a war coming, but there's still hope for society.
Yeah, they're still surviving. They're more than surviving. They're they're not thriving, but
it sucks.
Existing.
Survive. Yeah. Mad Max Fury Road, it's like you had like a dictator and everything, but they're still like at the end I think they get a bunch of water, which is like the most scarce.
It's down to tribal, like an almost tribal existence.
But they're still in existence. Interstellar, they end up like succeeding in finding like their new place to live and everything. So it's really interesting to see, like, to go from all those to your guys' pick, like Kevin's 2 and your 1, of absolutely no hope, just surviving as long as you can. Like, that's really depressing.
Yeah. So the real question is, what is your number 1? Is there any hope in that one?
You know what? There is. I mean, it's weird. So there is hope, but also at the same time, it's like anybody can die at any moment. Like, my number 1 pick is Dread. I think Dread is. I think I have it here more for the quality of the movie, not necessarily for the style of the movie, but for the quality. It's a great action movie. It's one of the more underrated action movies probably of all time. Nobody saw it in theaters, and I wish I had, because I saw it after, and I was like, this movie would have been badass in theaters.
Because like it was meant for 3D too, so that's
I know. Yeah, like the slow-mo scenes. Those would have been absolutely incredible. I think Kevin got a 3D TV, and he said that he watched it on there, and it was just absolutely amazing.
It's the best 3D movie I've ever seen.
That's high praise. And you saw Avatar. It was a garbage plot, but
I've never seen Avatar, so don't.
You've
don't
never
lie.
seen Avatar?
Don't lie.
He doesn't. He hasn't seen it out of
fans.
principle, probably.
I'm
Don't
so
lie to
jealous.
our fan.
I gotta say, I'm really jealous that you've never seen that movie. I wish I could wipe it from my memory.
Can't
But
you wait
anyways,
for Avatar 2?
be jealous.
They're filming it this summer.
Anyways, so this movie, like, Carl Urban, you guys were talking about it earlier.
Who's that?
He's Carl Urban.
What has he been in?
I don't know.
Nothing ever.
Oh,
Nothing
okay.
you've ever seen.
Yeah, I never heard of him.
The acting he does with his jaw and his mouth, just like the grimaces, like multiple styles of grimaces, I feel like.
And
And
it's
like,
a perfect impression right now.
he's so damn good in that role. And then it's like the one of the cool things about this is nothing they're doing is gonna impact the world at large. It's a very self-contained story. Like it's like a chapter in a book. It's like once it's over, it doesn't really affect all that much going forward, except in this small little area. They go into they're in Mega City 1. I think it's one of the 3 cities left that wasn't destroyed by the nuclear war. And basically, another thing too is the movie starts off with a chase. Judge Dredd is chasing some perpetrators, and they're just running people over. Like people just get killed like nothing in these scenes. Like just random characters are just getting wiped out. So it's like if you're in a city, but that doesn't mean you're going to be safe. Like you could be dead at a moment's notice just because some people decided that they didn't want to get arrested or judged.
Or they wanted your stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, in that chase at the beginning, there's shitload of collateral damage.
Oh, absolutely.
And nobody's accountable for it. It's just the way it is.
Not only that, it's like, do you remember after the whole chase scene was done, there was just there was a person that was killed, just a random civilian that was killed, and they send somebody in to clean it up, and it's just some guy on a cart cleaning up the blood, and it's just
it's like a shovel on the
remember.
What was that?
Did you just ask me if I remember that? Okay, I might as well just say it. Dredd is my number one also.
I knew it.
So we could talk about this together, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how little death has an impact on anybody in this movie because
it's everyday occurrence.
Yeah, exactly. It's an everyday occurrence because there's such a huge population that's so concentrated in Mega City 1. Which when Jay brought up this as his number 5,
he's
and
crazy.
him saying that it isn't necessarily dystopian, or isn't necessarily post-apocalyptic. I would argue that
I didn't say that.
You did say that.
The feel of it, like
it is absolutely
humanity
isn't there's 3 cities left.
They are
humanity
massive.
isn't teetering on the edge of of being existence. So I mean
I
do give it to you. It is definitely post-apocalyptic.
Okay.
Everywhere outside of the walls of the city is just nuclear wasteland.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know.
And that's where all the inbred hillbillies attack Stallone, and he's like, "I knew you'd say that."
You'd say that.
Oh wait, that's a different movie. But I mean, I honestly have a lot to say about this movie. I love this freaking movie. I was one of the few people, I think, out of 2,000 people that saw it in theaters. Amazing. I saw it in 3D in theaters. It was fantastic. It's the best 3D movie I've ever seen ever. Like the visuals when they're on the slow-mo thing and people are getting shot and you see the bullet passing through them and stuff. It's freaking insane. And I was like, holy crap, this it's very weird because the gore is almost pretty, which is really weird to say, but they do a fantastic job of really stylizing the hyperviolence.
It's because the colors are so vibrant too.
Oh,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. They really saturate all the colors and everything.
Do you remember the first scene with Mama? When she's in the bathtub and she's high in the slow-mo and she's hitting the water up, and the water just looks amazing.
Yeah,
it's an incredible sight.
Yeah, but what makes this movie so interesting to me, which honestly was established by the comics, obviously because it is based on a comic book series, but the fact that humanity is in a position where law enforcement is so short-handed that they have to expedite the whole process where the police the police are the judge, jury, executioner. They have the power to sentence criminals on the spot. And I think that's from a real life perspective is horrifying. And this dystopian future is all created on the fact that the police are understaffed. So they actually have judges policing the street. And so that's why you have so much collateral damage, because criminals are seeing the fact that they could be sentenced and killed right then and there as like, a last resort. So they're going to do whatever they can to escape.
It's an escalation, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But on top of that, you have really cool aspects of the movie, like where Dredd is like a very like by the book type of guy and he's established as the best judge that there is. And he's famous with other judges who have never even met him. Mm-hmm. And you have this rookie judge who's a mutant. She's a psychic who is taken under his wing. And this is all a test. Like it's a ride-along day where she's just with him, who's going to be tested. And essentially the worst possible situation happens.
It's training day.
Yeah, exactly. Except Dredd isn't corrupt. And so you go through this whole experience with them, and she breaks rules, and she essentially fails her test based on the book. But Dredd is ready to pass her because she made the right decisions, and he's already established as a guy who doesn't really do that. And I thought that was a really cool thing.
Throughout the day, I feel like he definitely changed his tune.
So his character growth was learning about nuance, about learning about how it isn't necessarily, it doesn't have to be by the book. It isn't black and white. Sometimes you have to bend the rules in order to get the job done, in order to make the right choices. And she demonstrated that. And really, really cool ending. And this is a movie, it's so underrated in my opinion. One of my favorite movies. If we ever did like a top 10 favorite movies episode, this would for sure be top 5.
Oh yeah.
I love it so much. And then like Jay said, like Bobby said, Carl Urban's performance is fantastic.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't see anybody else playing him in that movie.
No, for real. And I could gush for ever about how good this freaking movie is. So
well, this is officially now a review of Dredd.
So we should do that. We should do that at some point. If you guys are down, just like a short episode, half hour maybe, about just a review of this movie. Because it is the only movie that we all three had on our list.
Yeah, even though it's on my number 5, even though number 5 my post-apocalyptic movies.
Even though Jay hates it, by putting number 5.
Give me the guff. Just pour it on, guys.
So
Hashtag
that was
give Jay the guff.
Yeah. Well, so that was our top 5, which surprisingly had a lot of variety. We only had this one movie as a movie that we all repeated on our list. So I think it'd be cool if we went over a few just honorable mentions. Anybody who has any movies that they want to talk about that maybe didn't make the list. One that I would really like to talk about is Snowpiercer. Have either of you guys seen it?
I do. I have. It's a trip. It's something else, honestly. I can't decide if I love it or I just kind of like it.
I hear it's a super interesting concept. Like it's all the last people on Earth on a big train, right?
Yeah. And there's
it's
a class
just so contained. Like it's just, I don't know. It's just everything's in one box and it's kind of weird.
So basically, there's like a couple notable like just bullet points is. The world is in an ice age, so everybody lives on a train that rotates the Earth. It just goes around the whole Earth. It just keeps
moving. Yeah, so it doesn't freeze. That's why. Yeah,
exactly. So, and there's a class system. So the rich people live at the front of the train. Poor people live at the back. The poor people are fed essentially protein bars that are made out of roaches. So they're just like fed garbage. And essentially the movie comes down to a revolution. There's a revolution that happens. The poor people are fed up with being treated that way. And it's really interesting, and it's like, what if society as a whole, almost on a global level, is all focused on the size of a train? Really, really cool concept. So that's one of my honorable mentions. It almost made my list, and I loved it. Chris Evans is really good in it. Tilda Swinton, really good in it. Highly recommended. So, anybody else have another honorable mention?
I mentioned. I'm sorry, Jay, you go.
I'm going to go with 12 Monkeys. I don't know how many people have seen that. It's been a while. It's mid-90s movies. Brad Pitt and Bruce Willis. It's just trippy. Bruce Willis is sent back in time to stop Brad Pitt from releasing a virus. He's got a revolutionary group called the 12 Monkeys. And it's just it's very trippy movie. It's very...
Are they in an insane asylum?
Part of it, they are in an insane asylum, and then part of it, they're not. And it's just it's worth a watch. It's really hard to explain, but it's definitely worth your 2 hours of your time.
Well, I was mentioning that I put Interstellar, I switched that out with another movie just before we started recording here. Originally I had Days of Future Past, X-Men Days of Future Past. The reason I ended up taking it out is because not all of it is in the setting of the post-apocalyptic world, which is really what it came down to for me. But you have maybe a fifth of the movie that is, and the part that is really cool. Like you have in the current day, you have Wolverine, you have old Professor X, you have old Magneto, and I think you have Storm, and then like a few of the other younger X-Men, and most other X-Men are dead. The Sentinels, like the Sentinel robots, have eliminated most or almost all mutants, and I can't remember exactly, but I think they also, like, it's basically, it looks like the Terminator world, like the future Terminator world. It's just like there's like death camps, and like New York is just like decimated and like barren, and there's like nothing there. And then like basically, you know, they send Wolverine back in time to make sure that Mystique doesn't assassinate Bolivar Trask, and which would like accelerate the program because he's the one who came up with the Sentinels. And it's just I really love that it's got the old cast of X-Men, and it's also got the new first class cast of the X-Men, and going back and forth between present and future. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting. And you know, the time travel doesn't necessarily like make a ton of sense because like you have
it's a mutant power, so
well, I mean, the thing is mostly it's like you have like both things happening simultaneously, but it's like it really shouldn't matter. Like they shouldn't be happening on the same, like at the same time, if that makes sense. Like two tracks right next to each other. You know, it shouldn't really matter, but obviously the movie does that for dramatic effect. But either way, it's actually my second favorite X-Men movie behind Logan. I think that it's really interesting because they have Wolverine in there, but he's not the main character necessarily.
Which is honestly my biggest complaint with that movie. And if and when New Mutants ever comes out, we're gonna rank the X-Men movies, so keep an eye out for that. Besides that, I've got a list here of my honorable mentions that I want to just rattle off real quick. 28 Days Later was on this list, actually. I wanted to put it in my top 5, but just not enough room. 10 Cloverfield Lane, we talked about this in our disaster movie episode. Cloverfield being one of my favorite disaster movies. This exists in the same universe, not super connected, but really cool post-apocalyptic universe that they're in. Children of Men, probably one of the best movies.
I'm surprised that neither one of you had that.
Yeah, this is probably one of the best movies ever. Like it's a super clever concept. Essentially, humanity can no longer reproduce, as far as everybody knows. And there's one lady who's a refugee who in an anti-immigrant UK who is pregnant, and the main character played by Clive Owen. Is tasked, or essentially takes on the responsibility to transport her to a safe place. Really good movie. I Am Legend, Will Smith, really, really great book. They kind of bumbled the ending of the movie, but essentially the message is put there, or is still established, where he is essentially the monster that he's portrayed as being afraid of the whole time. I have Oblivion, Tom Cruise movie. I think it's very underrated. It's one of those movies that, like, I don't think got really a lot of attention, but essentially the world is taken over by aliens. There's a bunch of people that are just surviving who are hiding from the aliens.
Their advertising didn't do them any favors with their changing the title several times.
No. That's Edge of Tomorrow, which is my last honorable mention. Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah. Edge of Tomorrow, Emily Blunt, Tom Cruise, fantastic movie.
Phenomenal.
I didn't end up putting it in my top 5 because it didn't necessarily feel. And I talked to Bobby about this.
Disaster. It feels like more in the moment of a disaster.
This is less post-apocalyptic and more current apocalyptic. It's more of a war movie, but awesome concept. Also based on a book. So any chance you can to read the book over the movie, or do both. I recommend both. But yeah, those are my honorable mentions. Fantastic movies that I couldn't fit in my top 5.
Great.
So yeah, anybody else have anything to add?
I had one more. Jay and I talked about it last week a little bit. I'm actually surprised The Postman didn't end up in Jay's list.
Yeah. I thought it was going to. Or Waterworld. I really did.
Or Waterworld. I mean, honestly, I love both those movies. They're just a little too drawn out for anyone else
they're a little
to
dry.
be on that level. Yeah, they're dry, they're slow. It takes they're an acquired taste, I would say.
One thing I love about The Postman is that Tom Petty's in it as Tom Petty, and he's struck by the star power of The Postman rather than rather than Kevin Costner's character being struck by Tom Petty's star power.
Yeah. Well, isn't that weird that Kevin Costner he has Last of the Mohicans, he has Field of Dreams, but two of his probably most famous movies are post-apocalyptic.
I was thinking that. Well, okay, he does post-apocalyptic and he does baseball movies. He did.
You mean Dances with Wolves? You mean Dances with Wolves? Not
Dances with Wolves. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Sorry. Good call.
So Kevin Costner, he's done. He's done Bull Durham. He's done Field of Dreams. He did. He did For the Love of the Game, I think it was.
Oh, he loves baseball. That's why. He's baseball.
Oh, and I think it's great that he's in so many, but I didn't realize he was in so many post-apocalyptic movies.
I know it's kind of off topic, but one of my favorite movies of his is Mr. Brooks. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard some good things.
Actually, it's good.
All right, so keep an eye out next week. We're going to be doing top 5 Kevin Costner movies.
Yeah.
Super topical because he's been in a movie in the last year.
That's
going to be your number one. I know it's going to be your number one. You know why? Because it's also got, what's his name in it?
Michael Gambon.
Robert Duvall. And Michael Gambon.
Yeah. But Jay loves Duvall. All right, so yeah, I think we should probably wrap this episode up. We're going a little long. Anybody have anything else to add? Final thoughts?
No, I just think I think this is a really, it's weird to say fun, but this is a fun topic. It'll be fun if we never get to this point, so that'll be good.
Yeah. Well, with that said, I hope everybody stays safe out there. Like I said last week, stay healthy. Practice social distancing. Stay away from people. Wash your hands. Hand sanitizer if you got it. And for the people that have to end up going to work, thank you. Basically, I don't want to make this like a military thing, but thank you for your service, essentially. And everybody on the front lines, people in the medical industry, keep it up. And we definitely appreciate it.
Just everything. Just keep us going.
Exactly. And everybody who's in quarantine, quote unquote quarantine. I stumbled on my words right there. Keep listening to our podcast. This is episode 8, so we got a pretty significant backlog. Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know where we're wrong.
Tell us if you like it. Tell us if you don't. Just let us know.
Yeah, share with your friends. Because honestly, we're 3 really good friends. We're best friends essentially. 2 of us family, so we're best friends not by choice, but but I accept them anyways. So yeah, we're trying to build a community here. Anybody who wants to interact with us, I mean, we're super open. We have a lot of time on our hands, especially since we're staying inside most of the time. So interact with us. Check us out on all of our social media. Jay at the Jaggernaut, Bobby at IVDown12.
Well, yeah, just go to Twitter, twitter.com/NRDWave, and you can we post all of our stuff there.
Find our social media.
Get more
check out our
Instagram.
To follow us
and Instagram, NRDWave also.
Yeah. I don't want to sound like I'm begging, but for the love of God, please interact with us.
We want to keep this going as long as we can, guys. So,
which will be indefinitely because it costs us almost nothing.
Yeah. So we're losing our funding.
We're running out of money. Oh God, I only have $10 in the bank account.
We're getting $1,200 from Uncle Donald soon.
Yeah, Uncle Donald. All right. Well, with that said, stay safe. Keep riding that. Oh, that's Bobby. Sorry.
Yeah. Stay away from my line.
See you next time, and
keep riding that wave.
Wow. Ride that.